Welcome again, Wildcats, to another wonderful lesson. Today we're looking at Monday, October 30th, dividing polynomials with long division on page 26. So if you would, update your table of contents. All right, now your table of contents are updated. Let's take a look at our notes. Now I'm going to have you do something a little differently. I want you to take time to write down the outline of these notes, and then you're going to fill it in as we work together. So at this point, pause, update everything all the way down to step 2. All right, now pause and update everything all the way to step 6. All right, now you should have that outline. Now let's go through the notes. Now we're going to do the long division of polynomials, but before we do that, we need to refresh basic long division. Okay, so let's look at 93 divided by 4. Okay, step 1, divide. Okay, well, the first thing you have to do is think, well, how many times does 4 go into 9? Well, the answer to that is 2. So 4 goes into 9 2 times. Okay. Now, step 2, multiply. Well, you have to think about what is 4 times 2. Well, 4 times 2 is 8. Okay. Step 3, subtract. So we have to think, well, what is 9 minus 8? Well, that is 1. Okay. Step 4, we bring down. So we bring down the 3. And then we repeat the steps. Well, we think, well, 4 goes into, how many times does 4 go into 13? Well, the answer to that is 3. Well, now we ask ourselves, well, what is 4 times 3? Well, that is 12. Then we say, what is 13 minus 12? Well, that is 1. Okay. Now we see that our remainder is 1. So 93 divided by 4 is 23 plus 1 divided by 4. All right, so if you would, finish up your notes. All right, now that those are, let's take a look at our examples. Now we're going to use the same logic, okay, in polynomials. Okay, so now we have x plus 2 divided by x squared plus 5x plus 6. And I think I said that wrong. It should be x squared plus 5x plus 6 divided by x plus 2. All right, now I'm without ruler, but in life you got to improvise. So my little notepad here will be the ruler. All right, so step 1, we look at how many times does x go into x squared? Well, x times. So that's 1x. Now, one of the things you want to do when you're doing this is you keep all the x's in one row, all the x squareds in one row, all the constants in one row. Okay, you want to keep these very organized. Okay, now we ask ourselves, what is 1x times 1x plus 2? Well, 1x times 1x is 1x squared. And then 1x times 2 is 2x. And then we ask ourselves, what 1x squared plus 5x subtracted 1x squared minus 2x. We subtract. We say, well, what is this subtracted? These cancel, get 3x. Now, if the first term doesn't cancel, then you did something wrong, okay? Now, we subtracted. Now we're in step 4, bring down. So bring down the plus 6. And then we repeat the steps. So what is How many times does x go into 3x? Well, that is 3 times. Now we say, what is 3 times x plus 2? Well, that's 3x plus 6. And then we subtract. Well, cancels, you're left with a remainder of 0. So that equals 1x plus 2 plus 0 divided by x plus 2. Well, this is just 0, so you're left with 1x plus 2. All right, so finish up example 1. Now remember, I'm going to go through all the examples, but remember also that leaves you 2 routes after I've gone through all the examples. Route 1, you circle the questions you want me to go back over in class, or option 2, you move on and start working on the assignment. All right, example 2. Okay, so x plus 4 divided into x cubed plus 8x squared plus 21x plus 20. All right, so step 1, we say how many times does x go into x cubed? Well, that's x squared. Remember, you keep these lined up. It's very important that you keep it lined up. So like, see how all the x's were lined up? You're going to keep all the x squared lined up, all the x's and constants. Now we say, what is 1x squared times 1x plus 4? Well, that's 1x cubed plus 4x squared. And I don't put the plus sign because I know I'm going to subtract. Okay, so now step 2. Oh, actually, now we're on to step 3, subtract. So subtract. That cancels. If the first term doesn't cancel, then you know you did something wrong. 8x squared minus 4x squared is 4x squared. Okay. Now we bring down the 21x. And then step 5, repeat the steps. So how many times does 1x go into 4x squared? Well, that is 4x. So plus 4x. Again, notice I'm keeping everything lined up. All the x's, x squared. So now step 2, multiply. 4x times 1x plus 4 is 4x squared. Plus, and again, I keep writing that, but I need to not do that because you're going to subtract, so you don't want the plus sign there. 16x. I need to fix this line. Okay, I don't put the plus sign because I know I'm going to subtract. So that subtract, cancels. If this didn't cancel, then you know you made a mistake. So 21x minus 16x is 5x. Now we're into step 4, bring down. So bring down to plus 20. Okay, and then we repeat the steps. How many times does 1x go into 5x? Well, that's plus 5. So 5. Now we say 5 times 1x plus 4 is 5x plus 20. And I don't put the plus 20 because I know I'm going to subtract. You have a remainder of 0. So that equals 1x plus 4 plus 0 divided by x plus 4. Oh, I was about to make a mistake. Whoa. I'm sorry, all of you out there. That was craziness. It's actually 1x squared plus 4x plus 5 plus 0. Now, the mistake I made is I actually put this, and that's not what you got. It's actually here. Plus 0x plus 4. Now, that becomes 0. So then that's 1x squared plus 4x plus 5. All right, example 3. 3x plus 1 divided into 15x squared plus 8x minus 12. Now, something I haven't explained because it's all been in order, but whenever you're dividing, the exponents have to be in order from least to greatest. So 2, 1, and then constant. Okay, and you can't skip any. Okay, so if you're missing an x, you'd have to have 0x. If you're missing, so you have to have an x squared and x and so on. Okay, and that's going to be important when we get to example 4 and 5. All right, so step 1, how many times does 3x go into 5x squared? Well, the answer to that is 5x. So now we multiply 5x times 3x plus 1. That's 15x squared. 5x. I don't put the plus because I know I'm going to subtract. Cancels. The first term doesn't cancel. You know you made a mistake, but they cancel, so we're good. So then you subtract, you get 3x. Now we've subtracted. Now, next step, we bring down the minus 12, and then we repeat the steps. How many times does 3x go into 3x? Well, that's 1. And then we multiply. 1 times 3x plus 1 is 3x plus 1. And again, I didn't put the plus 1 because I know I'm going to subtract. Cancels, you're left with negative 13. So your remainder is negative 13. So you get, now I'm not going to make the mistake I made last time and wrote this. I have to remember to look at here. So it's 5x plus 1 minus 13 divided by 3x plus 1. All right, so finish up example 3. All right, let's take a look at example 4. All right, example 4. So x minus 4 I apologize if my hand covers up as I'm writing. I really am working on trying to write so that you can see as I'm writing. So this is where I talked about in example 3. It matters in example 4. So you have x to the 4th minus 3x cubed. So far, these in order by exponents. But here's the thing. You're missing an x squared, so you actually have to put plus 0x squared. Then minus 7x minus 14. Whenever you're dividing, you have to have exponents from least to greatest, and you can't miss one. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? That's something you have to be very careful and look out for. Okay? So now step 1, how many times does x go into x to the 4th? Well, that's 1x cubed. So then 1x cubed times 1x minus 4 is 1x to the 4th minus, now here I'm going to put minus, I'll explain why, minus 4x cubed. Now we subtract. And the reason why I do minus is because when you subtract a minus, it becomes positive. So this is subtract. Subtract a minus becomes plus. These cancel. You get 1x cubed. And then bring down the 0x squared. Now we repeat. So how many times does 1x go into 1x cubed? Well, that's plus 1x squared. And that's why you need the 0x squared. If you didn't, then you wouldn't have the x squared column lined up. Okay, so 1x squared times 1x minus 4 is 1x cubed minus 4x squared. You subtract. Subtracting a minus becomes a positive. Those cancel. You're left with 4x squared. Bring down the minus 7x. Now we repeat the steps. How many times does x go into 4x squared? Well, that's plus 4x. And then we multiply 4x times 1x minus 4 is 4x squared. minus 16x. And the reason why with the minus is because when you subtract, the subtraction becomes a plus. Those cancels, you're left with 9x. Bring down the minus 14, and then repeat the steps. How many times does 1x go into 9x? Well, that's plus 9. So then you multiply 9 times 1x minus 4 is 9x minus 36. We subtract. Subtract a minus becomes a positive. You're left with the remainder of 22. So you get 1x cubed plus 1x squared plus 4x plus 9 plus 22 divided by x minus 4. All right, so finish up example 4. All right, let's look at example 5. So x minus 2 divided into 4x squared plus 3x cubed plus 10. All right, so step 1, how many times is x going to 4x squared? Well, that is, wait a second, something looks funny. Pause for a minute. What's wrong with this situation? All right, I'm hoping you see that the exponents have to be listed from greatest to least. So, and you have to look out for that, okay? The x cubed has to come first. So this is 3x cubed plus 4x squared. Second issue, you're missing an x. It has to go 3, 2, 1. You're missing the plus 0x to the first power, then plus 10. Okay, and so that's important to note that this was written so it wasn't from greatest to least. So greatest from least, and you have to have every exponent 3, 2, 1, and then constant. Okay, now that's in the right order. You can divide. So now we go into how many times is 4 going to 9? X goes into 3x cubed, 3x squared. And notice we continue to keep the x squared, the x lined up. Okay. Now we multiply 3x squared times x minus 2 is 3x cubed minus 6x squared. Okay, we subtract. Subtract a minus becomes a positive. Those cancel. You're left with 10x squared. Bring down 0x. Now we repeat the steps. How many times is x going to 10x squared? Well, 10x times. So then 10x times x minus 2 is 10x squared minus 20x. We subtract. Subtract negatives positives, you get 20x. Bring down the plus 10. And then we repeat the steps. How many times is x going to 20x? Plus 20. Now 20 times x minus 2 is 20x minus 40. We subtract. Subtract becomes positive. Those cancel. You're left with the remainder of 50. So you get 3x squared plus 10x plus 20 plus 50 divided by x minus 2. All right, now at this point you have two options. Option 1, you circle the questions that you want, the examples you want me to go back over in class. Option 2, you're okay with what I explained in the video and you can start working on the assignment. So you decide, and talk to me about it tomorrow, and have a wonderful Wildcat